We come to Berlin, we American presidents, because it's our duty to speak in this place of freedom. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Welcome to the Fidelis Leadership Podcast, a place of learning for those who aspire to leadership excellence. Here's our host, Mike Etor.
Our guest today is Joe Stimac. Joe has a lot of corporate experience. He is an expert in selection and hiring, specifically of senior executives. He's helped many companies, large and small, especially large, improve their selection, hiring, and retention rates. Thrilled to have him here. He's a subject matter expert. And with that, Joe, welcome to the Fidelis Leadership Podcast.
Mike, thank you. And I'm honored to be here. Looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. I follow you on LinkedIn. I've read some of your stuff. It's intriguing. And this is a topic that is near or should be near and dear to all corporate executives, selection and hiring. If you don't get those right, trouble follows, as you know. And so I'll shut up right now and we're going to tap into your wisdom and insights. Before we do that, though, the very brief intro, you have a rich background. What more does the audience need to know about Joe Stimac?
I love helping people solve problems, and the common themes are everywhere. They revolve around productivity, engagement, and retention. Those are the three common things that we get called for to help them solve those problems. What's funny, if you get the selection part right, you improve all three. You get higher productivity, higher engagement, and higher retention. Yeah. If you get it wrong, you pay the price on all three. You get lower productivity, lower engagement, and higher turnover. So it's imperative that companies get the people trained, their hiring managers. Don't assume just because they're in a management role that they know how to interview.
Yeah.
We've helped companies, hiring boards, conduct the right interviews, ask the right questions. Think about it. You've got 1 hour to get the information you need from someone. And if your questions aren't laser focused, you're having conversation. And at the end, you have to make a decision based on limited information. So I'll explain more as we talk.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. A couple, standard questions I always ask of everybody on the podcast. If you were limited, if we were in an elevator, we only had 35 floors, just a minute, and I found out who you were and I wanted to hear what your leadership of philosophy was. Obviously a very condensed executive summary. I'm not going to hold you to a minute, Joe, but and as short as possible, concise, what is your philosophy of leadership?
My philosophy of leadership is listen to your people. They're the closest thing you'll have to making an informed decision. Allow your people to be free to speak with you, to tell you what they really think, what they know, what they need to know, and communicate with them. The other thing is I tell them is you make them feel valued. And I help companies improve engagement with one question. People are, you can't do that with one question. Yes, I can. It's a powerful question. I'll decide if I want to tell you what that is. It's a powerful one, but it has changed entire organizations because what it does, it engages a conversation. It starts a conversation.
Yeah. The timeless question I have to ask you, leaders born or made?
I like to think that they're made.
Any depth on that?
You've got to have some desire to be a leader. Not everyone wants to be a leader. I've had people say, I've taken leadership classes. Well, why did you take them? Well, my boss had a ticket, didn't want to go, so they sent me. Okay, but I had a great day away from work.
Yeah.
So it always comes back to motivation. What motivates people to lead? Is it, what is their reason for wanting to lead? And that's an important part. Once you get that down, if you think you have something great to offer, it's easy to lead. You have to want to. I like the servant leadership role, that kind of model myself.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said. Well, listen, I'm getting ready to ask you some very detailed questions, and I hope you give some very detailed answers to them. But just to frame it up off the front for our audience, who are all leaders aspiring to leadership excellence, and what you're about to offer and share with them is very critical to their success, even if many of them don't know it yet. It's one of those things they can listen to you now or listen to you later. Later is very expensive in more than one way, as you know. So I know I'm singing your song, but frame it up, Joe. What do you do professionally? Who do you help? What do you do for your clients?
What do I do for my clients? I help them understand the principles of selection. It's a simple process, but most companies, and I've worked with some great big ones, international companies that do not understand that. I remember years ago, I got a call from Sun Microsystems. A gentleman who was 3 doors down from Scott McNeely. He said, Joe, we made 3 bad hiring decisions. I heard about your work. Can you come and talk to us? So I flew to California. I said, all right, first thing before we do anything, I want you to write down the questions you ask. I want to hear some. And the question they were asking all ended with a question mark. Now think about that. A question mark. How would you? Why did you? Whatever, all those kinds of things that end in a question mark. They're hypothetical. I said, okay, how many of those questions are directly tied to a specific task they need to perform extremely well? Not many. You're having conversations. Next question I like to do, I like to do a pulse to find out just what they need to do and what they're doing right or wrong. So I asked them, how much do you talk? What's a good interview? Oh, it's 50-50. I said, okay, let me help you with that. 50% conversation, let's say it's an hour-long interview. That gives you 30 minutes of decision-making ability. You see where that's going? You're doing half the conversation. You're not getting information, you're giving information. So what I tell my clients is, listen, you just simply need to steer the interview. Use a structured interview process where you have the questions, you ask each applicant the same questions. What you're also doing is you're controlling the target. Think about that. If you decide, I have these top 10 things that I absolutely need you to do extremely well, if I control the target, you're going to touch and give me an example for every one of those. And I'm going to compare how your performance goes against what I need you to do or how my high performer does those. Are you here or are you here or are you down here? So what that does is takes the biases out. It takes the emotions out of it. That was the key. So when I heard those questions, I said, folks, this is going to be an easy fix. I'm going to show you how to do this and control the interview. And you only need to speak 20% of the time. Just listen. All of a sudden, you're getting 80% information back yield from the applicant. That's huge. That leads to an informed hiring decision. So it's a small change. It's like a gun. If not everybody shoots guns, but let's say you're driving. Just turn the steering wheel just a hair bit here. It may not look like much for the first 50 feet, but after 500 feet, you're in somebody's yard.
Yeah.
So what I do is I tell them how to correct it back and make the change back, get back on track again. It is a simple process, yet not many people understand how easy it is to fix the problem.
Yeah. I love that. So don't let me put words in your mouth. It sounds like you're saying that selection is so important, and of the selection process, the interview itself is where they can go right or very wrong in some cases. So I'd like you to go a little deeper, assuming that you agree that job interviews are exceptionally important part of selection. Tell us why. Go into a little bit more depth on interviews, because when it comes to interviews, I learned very quickly in my corporate world. I thought, I can talk to people and all that. Well, I was in the staffing industry, and my boss was an experienced interviewer, and I didn't know what I didn't know, Joe. We interviewed the same person one time, and what I got from that interview, me talking to him, and what my boss got from was entirely different. And that's when I realized there's something to this. This guy is a skilled, adept interviewer, and he was able to pull things out of that guy that I had no clue about. I would have hired him. And he said, no, we're not going to hire him because he's not ready to move. He won't move his family. And I'm like, how'd you know that? So anyway, I digress. Interviews are important. Give us a little bit more meat on that.
You got it, Mike. They're critical. What you just said right there, he asked different questions. He got information that you didn't get. And that's so important. So up front, the most important thing you'll do is a little homework up front. Identify your targets. Identify the questions you need to ask to get the information that you need from the applicant. And not many people do that. Let me give you an example. Let's say I have 5 applicants, 5 great applicants on paper. They look great on resumes. Remember, resumes are typically inflated. They look great. So if I'm not trained, what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle 5 things from each resume that I want to talk to you about. What I've just created was 25 different targets. I've let the applicant control the target instead of me taking control of the target. So think about it, 5 here, 5 there, 5 there, pretty soon up at 25. At the end, I have to make a hiring decision, go, no go on each applicant. How do you consolidate? You don't. It comes down to a gut instinct decision. So what I tell people to do is move the resumes away. You've decided who you want to talk to. Now it's time for you to take control, full control of the interview. Write your questions that you need to have the answers to, kind of like what your boss said. He understood that to get the information I need, I have to be laser focused. I need the information up front. So by getting the information that he got that you didn't get, he was prepared to identify specific things. Are they willing to move? Whatever the job requirements are, you need to have that information at the end. So by doing the pre-work, you create a structured interview, you create a structured set of questions that are critical to aspects of doing that job. Just because someone has the experience does not mean they have the motivation to do it. So what I tell people to do is 3 things I want you to be able to answer for me at the end of the interview. Number 1, can the applicant do the job? Number 2, even more importantly, is will the applicant do the job, and to what extent are they motivated to do that job? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Because I can teach you to write code, but I can't teach you to like customers. Or
Right.
Southwest is a great example of how they hire. They hire people who love working with people. If you ever flown on a Southwest airline, then they told jokes, or they, or they sang to you. Because a lot of these people they hire are musicians, former comedians, whatever. They love people. They hire for that. They can always teach them the routine, the safety routine, but they can't teach them to like customers. I remember talking to Andy Taylor, the CEO, former CEO of Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and he walking down the hall, he puts his hand on my shoulder and said, "Joe, what business are we in?" I'm like, "Well, pretty simple. I was young and dumb back then. Obviously the car business, the car rental business." I thought, wow, I got that one, nailed that one out of the park. No, he said, "No, we're in the people business." He goes, "We don't see cars coming up to the counter to rent other cars. We see people that have a specific need that we need to solve for them."
Yeah.
And somehow magically, whatever happened, I helped them get that. I got the contract to help them revise the questions to do that, to ask the right questions. Because they were asking, how would you sell me this pin?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you going to do with what I tell you? Oh, that sounds great. That's just me thinking on the spot. But what have I done that's similar to that?
Yeah.
Once I explained, it's not about having, it's about doing. What have you done? And the way I like to describe it, it's don't ask questions, how would you do something? Ask questions, how did you do something? Because if I asked you, for example, how would you handle a difficult customer? You can give me anything you want, Mike. You can say, I probably would. You hear the words probably? I hear that all the time. It's not definitive. It's not real. It's just a hypothetical response to a hypothetical question. Now think about that. Give me a specific example of a time when you worked with a difficult customer. What was that situation? What action did you take? How did the customer respond? There's nothing to memorize. The applicant is crystal clear what they did because you're asking them to recall a memory. That memory is what makes it valuable, because now, no matter what question I asked, what other options did you try? You already have the answers because that's you. Think about it. It's almost like a handprint in concrete.
Yeah.
Eventually, over time, it hardens. You can't change it. That's your actual performance level. That's what's believed. So what I try to tell people, the difference, what I teach is not how, it's the difference between would and did. Would provides nothing. Did provides everything, because that you're creatures of habit. I can predict based on your past performance what you may do for me in a future performance. The richer the details, the better and easier it is for me to make a hiring decision. It's that simple. So
yeah, I love that. Lately, selfishly, I'm going to steer this next question to you. Lately, a good number of my clients are in growth mode, scaling mode, so they're hiring senior leaders. Which I'm asking you, I'm going to ask you literally, like, is there any special considerations when you are selecting and interviewing and hiring people who are senior? They're going into your senior roles and, are going to, for better or worse, shape the executive team.
Yeah.
Would you talk a little bit about selection and interviewing and hiring at the upper? It doesn't matter how big the company is. These are your senior leaders that you're hiring.
Yeah. Right now, the statistics are pretty dismal. 50% of executive leaders fail in the first 18 months.
Yeah.
I was talking to a company leader in Boston, Massachusetts, a couple of years ago, and they're a venture capital firm. They own a lot of companies, or they invest in a lot of companies. And sometimes what they'll do, they'll replace the CEO. And in confidence, he said that, Joe, it would have been better just to leave the current CEO there and just get him some executive coaching, help them identify what their blind spots are, where the weak areas are.
Yeah.
That's where you come in.
Yes.
They need that external feedback. And that's a problem. Like they say, when you're at the top, it's lonely. Who do you turn to? You can't just go down and start asking your employees, hey, what am I doing wrong? How would you fix this? But if you get it from someone that can be an impartial, sounding board, you can really fix your problems. And that's what happens is leaders are under a tremendous amount of pressure. They have to shape initiatives. They have to come up with new ideas, new business partners, new ventures that they got to roll out. And if they're faulty, can they trust their team under them to tell them, hey, we're not doing well. This is a bad decision. Can they take that information and do something with it? Or are they strictly on, hey, tell me what I want to hear? Yeah. You see, in order to hire a good executive, you really need to get down in the weeds. You need to find out how they've done something in the past. Tell me about a time when you championed an initiative that failed. Why did you champion it so hard? Why did you think that was a good idea? What obstacles did you encounter? What obstacles did you encounter that you did not anticipate? And then how did you respond? So what happens is the follow-up probes are a lot deeper. The questions are maybe fewer, but the follow-up quotes are a lot deeper because we want to see your actual behavior in such roles. Who did you turn to for help in this initiative? When did you decide to cancel this initiative, and why? What was the financial repercussions of that decision? You see that? We want the whole picture. You started it, you ended it. What happened between there? I need to know everything about you. Yeah. We're looking for weaknesses. We're looking for problems. And these questions are brutal. The way the questions were derived, I'm a scientist. I love research. So I started reading books. I started listening to executive leaders. There's, for example, Dr. Sidney Finkelstein from Dartmouth, brilliant guy. I love his work. Why CEOs Fail. And I would strongly recommend anyone out there listening right now to get that book, Why CEOs Fail. Great book. It will talk about why incredibly bright people ruined great companies. So what I love is success leaves clues, failures leave even more clues. Yeah. Identify those failure points and then target those so that the next person you bring in will not be your next failure. For a CEO, let's say 300,000 to a couple million in salary, if not more, they're shaping the strategy of your company. You need to be crystal clear on their weaknesses, blind spots, failed initiatives, how they handle change, everything, how they communicate with people. Are they top down? Are they actually servant type of leaders? What are they? What are they going to do to your organization? They're the ones that's steering that boat. And if they run it aground, you've got to figure out how to get that boat unstuck and get it back on track.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I do agree, going all the way back to one of your earlier statements in this segment. As an executive coach, I've dealt with some private equity companies. And as you know, Joe, these are very smart people. They are very smart. They have a lot of money to invest. They're very adept at identifying companies. We're going to buy this company. We're going to pump it up and build it up. And we're going to flip it in 5 years. And we're each going to walk away with $20 million. They're all about being mercenaries. And what I have found, obviously I don't know the entire industry, but almost everyone I've ever talked to, they do financial due diligence. They do product. What do we gain by buying this company? But they invest nothing in the leadership team that is going to be in place for that asset that they just spent a lot of money for. And if there's anything that's going to tube that integration, it's the leadership team that they put in place or leave in place. And they don't seem to, it's proof of smart guys doing dumb things repeatedly. Has that been your experience? Are you seeing the same thing I'm seeing?
Mike, you're dead on. You are absolutely correct. I love what you just said here. Smart guys doing dumb things, and they don't mean to do them. They just do them. But the trick is they need a feedback loop. They need something that says, okay, how am I doing without having to ask the employees? But that's why external coaches like yourself are vital to any leader, and they need to start early, because if you don't, they're not taught to be great leaders. They ascend to that role. All of a sudden, here you go, now lead.
Yeah.
If you do ascend to that role, you need to have a whole new set of competencies, and you need to have clarity in what you're doing. That's why if I'm going to hire you, I need to find out. I'll give you a great example. I worked with a company that wanted, their CEO was retiring, and they said, look, we don't want to make a hiring mistake. We absolutely need to make the correct hiring decision, that whoever we hire next will take what she left off. And she did a phenomenal job. Great company, built it up. It is super. We don't want somebody to come in, change the direction, stop some initiative, things like that. So what they did is they hired another firm to identify 7 top applicants that could fill that bill. Said, okay, you've looked at these 7 applicants. What did you decide? We're going to interview every one of them. It's that important of a role here. Said, all right, before I start, have you identified or at least marked down which applicant on paper that you would decide to hire? Well, yeah, here's our top 3 choices. I'm like, okay, right there, you showed me your first bias. Okay, let's find out some more of your biases. Why did you choose those? Well, look at here. It says they had this experience. They did that. I said, okay, that's all on paper.
Yeah.
Let's identify. Let's figure out if they really are that good when you talk to them. So they asked me to write the questions for them. I said, now remember, these questions are going to get brutal. They're going to be hard. What's funny is the top 3 people that they picked on paper, when they finally used the questions that I created for them, the follow-up questions really made them stand like, whoa. One executive, they really had thought this is going to be our next leader. He was arrogant. He would decided that, well, I let my track record freak myself, speak for me. I'm like, okay, well, tell us more about this. Tell us about a time when you failed at something or failed at this and that. We had a lot of negative outcome questions. I love negative outcome.
Yeah.
Because they really make a person become real. You have to get real with what you've done. What was interesting, not one of the top 3 made the final cut.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah. So, okay, what was surprising is there was a lady that they picked. They probably would have given the 7th slot, not much there. Her answers were dead on. She was very descriptive. Her answers rich in detail. She admitted mistakes. She was forthcoming. You didn't have to dig. A genuine, great leader. It's the kind of person that you'd love to have a conversation with and keep it going.
Yeah, I love that. We're on a similar track here with what you're doing in executive coaching. One of the very first questions I'll ask a client, and many of them are highly accomplished executives, and they haven't failed much. But I always ask them, tell me about your biggest failure as a leader. And I have found, Joe, that what turns out to be ultimately the very best that I deal with, they can't wait to tell you about how they blew it. They are so, they've got a track record. They've got all the trophies, but let me tell you about this. What was I thinking? I did this. I almost put the company out of business. They freely share it and love to teach other people through their failures. The men and women that I find like, well, I don't really know if I've ever failed at that, those, once I get to know them, I am in there coaching them for certain reasons. And that's an indicator of why I'm there,
Absolutely.
It's pretty amazing. But listen, you talked a little bit earlier about, certain things you're looking for in executives. I'd like to go a layer deeper on that. What are some of the executive competencies that you advise your clients to screen for and identify whether they're present or not in the candidate, executive level?
Absolutely. At the executive level, you have to understand the decision-making process. It's different than somebody else, deciding to buy a, rack of pencils or whatever.
Yeah.
They're deciding, their decision process must take into a lot of account. How did you make that decision? Was it gut instinct? Was it something you dreamt up? Was it based on actual market data? Why are we going to do this? Motorola decided to stick around with, the mobile phone that was analog, not digital. Think about that. Oh, we got this down. BlackBerry decided to stick with certain things. Look where they are today.
Yeah.
Bad decisions. This is what I love that Sidney Finkelstein's book. It talks about these mistakes. When great leaders are so adamant that their ideas are going to work that they put everything into them. You've seen great leaders today, I won't mention names, but that are putting billions of dollars into an idea that's not quite catching on yet.
Yeah.
So you get the idea.
Yeah.
You need to find out how their decision-making process is. How do they measure right-left margins? Are there any bumpers on this road that they're going on? Are they just going full throttle into this stuff? Is it incremental? I agree. Sometimes you have to have market leadership. You got to make bold decisions. But where did that stuff come from? Are you an inside looking out company that tells the customers, I'm going to give you what we want to give you? Or are you outside looking in company? Listen to your customers. This is what we need. Jack Ma is a great example. The guy who started Alibaba, you probably heard of him.
Yep.
He said something so powerful that I love. He says, the opportunity lies wherever the customer complains the loudest.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Not, I'm going to tell you how to do this. No, listen to your customer. Let them tell you what they want. When there's in that book talks about the stent, the heart stent. Johnson & Johnson said, "Oh, we got the great stent. We're not going to give them. You get one size, and that's all." Doctors were saying, "Look, but we need different sizes."
Yeah.
Pediatric to adult. We need different sizes for different arteries, different veins. We need different sizes. Finally, somebody said, we'll make you. What size would you like? And destroyed their market. So sometimes little things like that, not listening to your customers. Yeah. So the other ones, understanding initiatives, understanding your customer, failing to understand the customer, decision-making. There's like a whole different corporate decision-making or executive decision-making, communication effectiveness. How do you communicate? I understand executives are very brief. They communicate very quickly. Or are they clear in their communications? Do they solicit feedback? Who is allowed to give them that feedback? Is it certain people? Do you have to go through the chain of command before it ever gets to them? Or is someone at the bottom says, we're having a disaster here. Please listen. Somebody that says, hey, the house is on fire. They have to be able to be, are they open enough? Are they within reach?
Yeah.
So all the business philosophy, their access, everything, all these competencies that we're looking for are what makes up that person. You're going to invest a lot of money and you're investing the whole enterprise's direction and future in the person. You need to know what their thoughts are. You need to be crystal clear on those and really dig down.
Yeah. And I think to reinforce what's I think is the obvious, Joe, to really get to know these people that you're going to spend a lot of money when you hire them. And 50% of them are gone within 18 months. The data shows that. I think what you're implying, maybe I've stated it earlier, is you better have a really airtight selection process that asks these guys questions over and over and over different ways so that you can really know them by the time you make a hiring decision. Am I onto something here?
Mike, you are dead on. What I did is I created a program called Interview Builder. That's an online solution. There's the executive version, and then there's the general version. The executive version touches every critical competency based on documented performance or failures at organizations from previous executives. I did the 5 years of research. I love this stuff. I'm a research junkie. I want to find out, why did they get it past us? What did we fail to ask?
Yeah.
Because if I fail to ask you something and you don't volunteer the information, shame on me. I didn't do my due diligence. So the questions are there. Every competency that's critical to successful hire of a CEO, CFO, CIO, take your pick, anybody, executive director, you need to have clarity in what they've done in each one of these competencies. And I mean, this is not an hour interview. This is a couple hours, maybe a 3-hour interview. And it's brutal. And a lot of the questions are negative outcomes. Tell me about a time when you made a bad hiring decision, when you failed to hire the right executive assistant or the person that directly reports to you. What did you fail to do? What did you fail to identify? So not only do they have to be good leaders, good executives need to understand how to hire extremely well.
Yeah.
We give them those tools to do that. That's what's critical. We've done our
Well, I think I want to ask you, this is an ad lib question. I'm big on human nature and, our innate biases and all of that. And I think, you're getting ready to validate what I'm saying here. I think we tend to like people that look and sound like us. And so we tend to hire in our own image, which doesn't mean we're hiring a bad person, but it could be precisely the wrong person that we need in that role, because too many Mike Ettors on an executive team, probably not good. One or two with several other personalities that all a chemistry that makes a good compound is great, but one ingredient does not a good stew make. Any thoughts?
Mike, dead on. You think about what you just described here is called unconscious bias. So I'm going to show you how this works. Mike, think of a doctor. Describe that doctor to me. What's he look like? Who are they? What's she look like?
Yeah.
Help me out here. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, my vision of a doctor is 45 years old, fit, handsome, glasses, looks studious, but he's cutting edge. He's vibrant, attentive, friendly, engaging. He's the doctor that I want to deal with.
What you just said here, did you notice that? Because
yes, absolutely. I knew you were fishing for that. And it's absolutely true. My bias is it's a man, Exactly. Though my primary doctor is a woman and a great one. But when you say doctor, because of my generation and my bias, boop, man, right off the bat.
That's the thing. We have to, first of all, we teach a lot of things. When we train hiring managers how to hire, we do a special chapter on biases. We have unconscious bias, confirmation bias, first impression biases. These are just some of the biases you have to do. For example, most untrained interviews, they use the first impression bias. I like you. I'm going to make the easy. I already made up my decision. I'm just going to use the rest of the interview to validate my first initial impression.
Yeah.
If I don't like you, I'm going to make your life hell. I'm going to validate my initial first impression that you just can't do this job. I don't like something about you.
Yeah.
I had just an interesting thing. I had a client in DC. They were looking for a special person, a nuclear physicist. They're not handed, not every around each corner. So I gave them a name of one. They brought him in. I was there next week. I said, all right, when we come, I talked to the gentleman. I said, they invited you. I'm not going to tell you more. They got to do what they've got to do. So when you see me in the hallway, if you should happen to see me, just smile and nod, just like you would, but don't engage me in a conversation. I don't want to bias their decision. I don't want to tell them that I know this stuff. So they're going to have to make their own independent decision. What was interesting, they did not decide to hire this person. So I asked the owner, I said, why didn't you hire that person? He goes, well, the interview people decided they just couldn't get over his looks. Like, really? What do you mean his looks? Well, he's kind of plump, so he's a little bit bigger. He also has white hair, white beard. What does that remind you of?
Santa Claus, yeah.
Thank you. That's exactly what they said. They just couldn't get over the fact he looked like Santa Claus. Santa Claus is not a nuclear physicist.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You just probably turned down one of the top 10 in the country.
Okay.
Oh my God, can you call him back and, no, this is what I wanted to show you. Yeah. This is your faulty process. This is what I'm here to fix from you so you don't make decisions like that. In fact, I tell people, look, do a telephonic interview. What does a telephonic interview do without being able to see? What do you have to do?
Yeah, you have to listen.
You have to listen.
Yeah.
I learned this from a college kid that sat next to me. He took a class. He had to sing iDog. He sat right next to her, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a tough class for this person. I learned more from him than the teacher that year.
Yeah.
What was funny, the teacher gave back the test. He said, they're coming down in descending order, put his face up number, got a 98 on it, face up. That was his. I'm like, how did you do that? I just, finally I got broke through the shyness and said, look, I'm sorry I sit next to you. I happen to notice the teacher put your answers up at, you got a 98. You got the highest score in the class. I wasn't even that close. I wasn't close. I was not in that same category.
Yeah.
He said, I want you to do something for me. I want you to close your eyes. I said, all right. He goes, what noises are you hearing that have been here the whole time we've been in this class? I said, well, I hear the air handling system going on. I just heard a chalk drop up front. I hear people laughing in that corner. Somebody just tore out a page. I hear footsteps in the hallway. He goes, amazing. All these noises are here constantly, yet you're in a constant state of deletion. I can't live like that. I'm in a constant state of hypervigilance.
Yeah.
My life depends on it. I have to listen to echoes of sounds. When I tap with my stuff with my dog, I have to pay attention if a car is coming from either side.
Yeah.
And he taught me something more valuable. He said, listen, whenever a professor repeats a pet phrase 2 or 3 times, memorize that phrase. Use it as often as you can in the written response. You'll get every point for what they associate with. Brilliant.
Yes.
I'm parroting what the professor thinks is super important. My grades went up instantly because of one conversation.
Yeah.
What I tell people is, do a blind interview, put them behind a wall where you can't do the visualization. Like he says, when you lose one of your senses, all your other senses they become hypersensitive. You really start paying attention. You listen. And by having your questions ahead of time, even the follow-up questions, you can glance down. If they already answered, you can skip it. That's what makes it a great interview, because now you are truly making informed hiring decisions that are unbiased, that are not preconceived notions. Strictly let them earn the right to work for your company. Then you will start a world-class organization.
Yeah, well said. What a lesson from the blind guy, though.
It's funny you said that, because actually, when I met my future wife, that's exactly what happened. I wrote a book. She was in Connecticut. I'm in Kansas. She called to order it, and she would not send me a picture. We actually started communicating. We had a great conversation. I said, I'd like to continue the conversation. Call me back if you like. A couple of days later, she calls back, says, really enjoyed our conversation. Yeah, I want to talk to you some more. We got comfortable with each other. She saw what I looked like because I wrote the career talk column. Yeah, it was like a Dear Abby for job seekers, because I wanted to know what people wanted to know. She called quite frequently during the day. Sometimes she says, hey, I just thought about you. Just want to say hello. I thought, this is great. Anyway, so I'm like, can you send me a picture? I'd love to see who I'm talking to. Nope, you're not getting a picture. What happens there? What did she just say here? How would you respond if somebody says, I'm not sending you a picture? You're not to like me for who I am.
Right. Well, the first thought is, we've been talking a while. You see what I look like. If you don't send me a picture, that means that you're probably not comfortable with how I'm going to respond to your picture.
Yeah, exactly. Think about that. And I was young back then. I had friends who were not the greatest friends. Oh, she's, she'll, when you finally bring her out here, she'll level the plane when she gets off. Oh, good God, I need new friends. Anyway, I decided, okay, 3 months, I've got to meet you. I am in love. I didn't care what she looks like. I didn't care if she would level the plane. By that time, I started realizing just what that blind kid taught me. He said something so important. He said, I feel sorry for the sighted world, because you make a connection on the outside and you decide whether they're worth your time. I can't see them. But if I listen close enough, I can hear her heartbeat. I thought, damn, I'm right here and I can't even hear mine,
Yeah.
He was that powerful. He goes, I can see inside her soul. I thought, that's exactly what happened with this girl.
Yeah.
I did not know what she looked like. But the beauty of it, she worked for Special Wishes. She helped kids' final wish, young kids get their final wish before they died.
Wow.
I thought, how do you put that into words, how powerful that is? I got to know this girl. I'm thinking, I'm just really lucky I got to even talk to her,
Yeah.
because I found somebody so good that I just had to meet her. So I finally gave her the police chief's number. She goes, "Why are you giving me that?" I was like, "Because my neighbor." It's like, it was back in Kansas. So I decided to fly her out. I said, my heart's probably, you could hear it across the airport. I'm terrified. Obviously, even then, no matter how much you like someone, you're guessing, because she could not send me a picture. She goes, "I know what you look like. I'll come to you. Just be there." I'm like, okay. And it turned out great. She was absolutely beautiful. I expected everything but that.
Yeah.
It's like, "Why did you do that?" She goes, "Because I needed you to like me for who I am, because this is going to change over time, over 40, when I'm 50. Everything's going to change. It's no longer be what you see right now."
Yeah.
We've been married 23 years.
Profound. Yeah.
She is the person that I interviewed. And she goes, "You're asking some really strange questions." "Yeah, I'm doing research on the project for a behavioral interview program putting together." So you get to answer these questions. And it's funny. Past performance truly predicts, still today, the same person I married way back then.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, let's go down to another road. I was at a leadership seminar years ago, Joe, and an assignment, and in class, I said, "Right now, right here, take a piece of paper and give us one line, no more than one sentence, and a short one at that, of your philosophy. Explain leadership, where leadership fits in." And here's what I did. I 4 words with the greater sign. Leadership is greater than culture. Culture is greater than strategy, and strategy is greater than tactics. And I have found that most leaders want to go focus right away on strategy and tactics, but they don't have the culture that can support the strategy and tactics. And the culture, I tell people, everything that good or bad stems directly or indirectly from that left quadrant, leadership. Leadership shapes the culture of your firm. So it makes sense. We've been talking about selection and hiring. If you're bringing in senior leaders, really leaders at any level, if you're bringing them in, but especially senior leaders, they're going to have a profound influence one way or the other on your culture. Assuming that I'm correct, how much of an influence on the leader, the influence on culture, how much does that combined with, how does it result in high or low turnover and retention in a company?
Ray Delisle, love this guy. He's a multi-billionaire, happens to live in Connecticut. Great guy. Love this guy. Love reading about his comments. One of these days, I'd love to meet him. So that's my goal. So if anybody knows him, please make an introduction. Anyway, he said something so profound. I've been professing it since I've read it. It says, the company shapes the hiring, the hire shapes the company. Think about that, how powerful that is. If the leadership sets the tone and the tone is wrong, then that changes everything. Let's think about Enron. They had a great mission vision statement on their board. Remember Enron those days?
Absolutely.
Jeff Skilling, Ken Lay. What they did was they brought people in that caused the culture to drift. Leaders that caused the culture to drift enough to change the original company from this to this. It was rewarded. Bad behavior actually became rewarded. That bad behavior was not only that, but there was illegal behavior. It brought down them. It brought down a top 5 consulting firm. All because of bad culture. The culture shifted. Now think about this. If you have a small company, let's say you've got 10 people, that's not a big deal. Hiring is absolutely crucial, because one bad apple and one bad hire, it's going to start cultural drift, especially if they are strong in their personality. Same thing goes with people, with leaders. If you have a strong personality leader and they don't understand the culture of an organization, they will wreck that organization. They're going to have infighting. They're going to have people climbing up on each other. They're going to have, whatever. It's not a pretty picture. 3 things we look for. Can you do the job? Easiest to develop or easiest to identify. Number 2 is motivation. Will you do the job and to what level? And the last one is super important. Will you fit the company's current culture? If you all 3 are solid, yes, go ahead and hire. If they're a yes, yes, maybe, do not hire. I've had a company that I worked with in Virginia that said, Joe, dang it, we heard you tell us that. We listened to you. We betrayed your rules.
Uh,
What happened? Well, we hired a yes, yes, maybe. It was a CFO of a company. Okay, what happened? They just didn't fit in with us. They did not share our values. They wanted to do things this way and that way. It just didn't work out with us. And we got the lawyers involved right now trying to get rid of them. It says, but they're only been here 3 months. Yeah, but you don't understand what they've done. I thought, holy cow. Okay, so they became super believers. What's interesting, that company, when they brought me in, there was only a 12-person startup. Today, they're $1.5 billion company with less than 2% turnover in an industry that is between 24 and 36%.
Yeah, nice.
They followed the process. It is a process. Imagine General Motors saying, just bring all the parts and we'll figure out what goes where and when. No, it take you a month to build one car. It has to be just in time and it has to be the right part at the right time. Just like this, the right person at the right time, at the right level.
Yeah. I want to go one level deeper on something that we're both touching on, but especially you. And I'm going to use the term cultural due diligence, because that yes, yes, maybe he or she can do the job. They want to do the job. But I maintain if you don't consider, is this person a good fit for the culture that we have and want to maintain, or can be a key driver in the culture that we want to build here? If the answers to those aren't an enthusiastic yes, you're getting ready to make a big, big mistake and probably bounce that person out pretty quickly. And no matter how quickly you fire that person, you'll wish you had done it weeks or months earlier. Any thoughts?
Absolutely, Mike. The damage is done.
Yeah.
The wrong person it's like, okay, you're asking them to captain the ship, of this ship. Whether he or she is the right person, what they decide to do is going to determine where that ship ends up. If let's say, we're going to take a shortcut. If you've been down to Cape Horn, around that area, it's very choppy waters, wrong moving. You see a lot of ships up on the rocks. That's the problem. It has to be a person that's familiar with that, they understand how to navigate, that truly been there. They know how to work with the roughest seas. They know how to do that. That's where you get, plus they have knowledge of the area, the waters. The same thing when they bring someone to your organization. If they don't have prior experience with your company, they need to get to know your culture. They need to do some really deep research before they even apply. Is this going to be a good fit for me? Or if not, this is why it's so important to hit those questions super hard when you're bringing that. And on the board of directors, I work with boards of directors, they have to understand how critical these questions are. I need those to be solid yeses. Or I need them to say, okay, tell me about a time when you changed the culture of an organization. Why did you decide to change that? I need to know your thinking, your thought process. Why was it vital? Well, because we have such poor culture or lack of a culture, it was a free-for-all.
Yeah.
We need cultural alignment in this organization. We need to do a pulse check. We need to find out why the people are unhappy working here. A lot of times, the problem with this is they started, let's say, do a survey. Let's say the CEO decides we're going to do a culture survey. There's a culture survey and there's a climate survey. Culture says this is who we think we are. Climate says this is who we really are. So when you do a climate survey, say, okay, well, management just doesn't listen. Well, that's okay. We'll try to listen. No, we need to listen.
Yeah.
The management needs to hear the people at the bottom. You're not listening. That's why you have high turnover. So there's a whole process in place. There's some great tools out there that can help you get the information you need to make that decision. It's like a doctor that runs tests. I need to find out. I'm not going to have preconceived notions. There's another one called confirmation bias that says, I think I know what you have, but I'm not going to say anything, which is smart. I'm going to do testing, medical tests, lab tests before I decide that that's what you have. Because my confirmation bias is I can start treating you right now for that, but it could be completely wrong. It actually happened to my wife. The doctor thought, I think I know what you got here. Oh, we're going to take out your gallbladder. Months later, I still don't feel much better. Something's not right. Well, I thought you'd feel better by now. No, it happened to be the appendix, which is about to burst. So think about that.
Wow.
Yeah. Because of confirmation bias. The same thing goes with executives. Wrong confirmation bias, that they're quick to confirm, make a decision, snap decision, but you need the right information before you can make that decision.
Yeah. Well, let's go down that rabbit hole, so to speak. What are you're stating, implying and stating, literally stating that interviewers are doing some things wrong. Give us some examples. What are interviewers literally doing wrong?
Okay. Number one, they're untrained. Number two, they don't listen. They speak 50% of the time. They steer the conversation to what they want to. Number three, the questions are not focused to actual tasks that they need to have the person do. I don't care if it's executive level or entry level. I need to know what you've done in the past that's similar to what I need you to do. Because if I ask you hypothetical questions, which is the next thing, I'm asking hypothetical questions, I get opinions. Opinions do not help me make a decision. Opinions say, oh, that sounds great. But when you ask you for a real example, well, that doesn't sound like what you just told me you would do. What did you do is different than what you told me you would do. Well, you didn't ask me that. You see that? The whole process has to be organized. There has to be a process in place, and it has to be focused so that the interviewer needs to talk no more than 20% of the time. They simply are a facilitator. They need to understand biases. So, for example, I met you. I'm comfortable. Right off the bat, I made an emotional decision. If I met you for the first time and I didn't like something about you, I'm a little uptight, or you didn't dress the right part, I have already made another emotional decision. And then I'm going to use that initial impression to validate that. So what I teach people to do is look at your emotional state right up front. Are you uncomfortable? Are you comfortable with a person? Either one, you have made an emotional decision. You may not recognize it at the time, but that's going to shape your ultimate decision. This is why I tell people, mix up the board. So let's make sure that people on the interview board that do not know this person, they may be from outside, because now they can see it clearly. They can see without confirmation bias what you may have missed. Kind of like what you said earlier, your boss was great at interviewing. They understood confirmation bias. They understood all the biases. Which ones am I employing? Which ones am I using to make that decision that turns out to be faulty?
Yeah, I love it. Well, part of it, the untrained, I did a little research and reading, trained or untrained, scripts for interviews, yes or no?
Absolutely. It's called a structured job interview. A good example, Google 2015, Laszlo Bach did a deep dive into, are these questions we're asking any good? And he says, our conclusion was they're absolutely worthless. How many golf balls would fit inside a 757? If you want to look at it, it's on wire.com. Look at how Google hires wire.com, Laszlo Bach.
Yeah.
Chief People Officer, great guy, smart as hell. He said something, look, all these questions produce nothing, but what did work was behavioral interviews. As soon as that article came out, we got calls. We've been teaching that. We've been teaching our clients how to do this since 1997. Yeah. I even wrote a book before that. It's a flashcard kit of behavioral interview questions for job applicants. How to, for example, if I ask you, how would you handle a difficult customer? My applicants are trained to answer, I can give you a specific example when I work with a difficult customer. You see the difference?
Yes.
First one says, well, I'll probably ask them what's wrong. I try to calm them down. I would see, would. Mine says, I can give you a specific example. I worked at Walmart. This happened. This lady came back, tried to exchange her swimsuit. She bought it for her granddaughter. There's a big sign that says, these swimsuits are not returnable. You cannot bring these back to the health code. So, she said, it's for my granddaughter. I still have the stickers on it, still hung up in that thing. And what did you do? Well, I brought my manager in to discuss this. We noticed that there's no way she could have fit into that tiny little swimsuit. But, we gave her store credit and they made her a happy customer. So you want the problem, the action taken, result. You need to know all three. You need to visualize them actually working in that. You can't visualize them working if you're asking hypothetical questions. You need to ask specific questions that can help them recall a specific memory and then drill down into that memory. Then you can see them work.
Yeah. I love it. Well, we're starting to get short on time here, but I got a couple more questions for you. Give us a little bit more meat. I think you've implied a lot. You've stated a lot too, Joe. How does your organization, what do you do to help employers, hire employees that really are going to pan out well? They're going to perform well.
Several things, Mike. What we did is we've been doing this for years. I do a lot of training, either on-site or remote training of companies. A lot of times I'll have 40 or 50 people in my virtual training class, hiring managers. Anybody needs to make a hiring decision, they bring me in and they said, okay, help us train that either on-site or virtually. But what I realized was training is one thing. I needed to provide solutions. So my team and I, we created a program called Interview Builder. I had 3 PhDs. I have psychologists help me develop the interview packets that you can now go online and within 15 minutes, you can have one incredibly targeted behavior-based interview that targets everything that you need them to do. For example, if the job requires decision-making, initiative, attention to detail, interpersonal effectiveness, communication effectiveness, whatever it is, you just basically in 3 steps, 15 minutes, enter position title, program analyst, chief financial officer, whatever it is, you go shopping, then pick out the competencies that are super important, that to do well in this job, you need to have these at the highest level. Okay, last step is under each competency, you'll see 1 of 15, it'll say, okay, these are 7, 8, 10 task statements. Which task statement is the closest? You pick one. As soon as you do, boom, it opens up and shows you 2 suggested behavioral interview questions. You pick the closest one. Think about it from bullseye. You're at the 7 circle, 8, 9, and then when you click on the magic button, it says edit question. So it's exactly what you want the person to talk about. For example, let's say the question is, tell me about a time you had to make a presentation to a group. That's a good question. It's not a great question. Click on edit. Tell me about a time you had to make an Intel presentation or a business analysis presentation to senior leadership or to your executive leadership. You see that? Now it becomes contextual, it becomes super laser focused. You can even edit the follow-up questions, and then you can look at that, listen for and evaluate. You can even edit those. So that whole time you're doing that question is going to give you an incredible amount of information to make a highly informed decision. And guess what? You don't have to do much. You don't have to say much at all. That's what's cool.
Yeah, I love it. Well, you've mentioned a couple of times during our conversation, Joe, Interview Builder. So it sounds like a tool. I really don't know what it is. So have at it. What is it? What's it do for your clients?
Mike, we realize the big pitfall of creating great interviews or hiring great people comes down to asking great interview questions. And there's just not a lot of solutions out there there are solutions. They're expensive. They're very complicated. They take a long time. You've got to do a lot of work to make them fit what you need the applicant to talk about. We took all that and made it super simple, 3 steps. Interview Builder, there's not a lot of information on the internet about it, and there's a reason. We don't want our competition to know what it is. We like our leadership in that. It is so powerful that we have a lot of customers that use it. We have a customer said, Joe, ever since we started using it, some of these are 6 to 8 year customers. I said, Joe, we have not been sued for discriminatory hiring questions at all. Our hiring managers have not got us in trouble. Well, that was easy. Stick to the script. You see that? Small change makes a big difference. Kind of like that driving your car. Small turn of the wheel will get you in a ditch or keep you on the road.
Yeah.
We bring you back on the road. So you do make really informed hiring decisions. The best way to do that is our website's being redesigned right now. So Mike, I do apologize. It's being reconstructed. You won't find much, but it's accuhire.com. It's basically a simple thing. We're a very private, very quiet company. The last 22 years, our whole company has grown by referrals. We have yet to spend $1 on advertising.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. So let me get this right in a high level sense. Interview Builder, your clients sign up for it. Is it software as a service? You give them a membership. And so Mike Etor and Fidelis Leadership says, I'm hiring a CFO. I go in, I hit the CFO button and all of that. put in some more variables and it spits out a crafted, targeted interview that if I follow it, I'm probably ahead of the game. Do I have that?
Massively. You're right. Step one, enter position title. Step two, go shopping. Pick the competencies. Remember, now you're in the executive version. There's a whole different version versus the standard version.
Got it.
You're going to identify what 5 years of research did. These are the targeted questions you need to ask to really make an informed hiring decision. You're absolutely right. Let's say instead of 15 minutes later for the executive, maybe an hour later, you can work with a team on these to identify. You can recraft the question to be truly relevant to what you talk about. Push print. You walk into that interview with an incredible set of laser focused questions that if you get the answers to it, you won't have to wonder which one to hire. You will not be fooled because of something that looks great on paper or they're a great communicator. You're going to identify specific examples of past performance that's going to lead you straight to the person you need to hire.
Yeah, I love it. Well, clarify now, because you just said executive level and others. So does this tool span the org chart, so to speak?
It does, but we have a standalone version just for the executive level.
Okay, got it.
The competencies are brutal. They're different. They're higher level. The questions are much harder. So everything up to the executive level, director level, things like that, we have a different version. But this one here, it's very guarded. We wanted to, when companies need to make the absolute right decision, that's the one we use with them.
Yeah.
We work with them, really tailor the questions, because once we understand what your outcomes should be, what are your desired outcomes, we want to craft the questions. It's as simple as, we're working with you. We're going to hit edit question. Now we're going to type in by listening.
Yeah.
We're going to edit those to be if you can get the answers to these questions, you're going to make a very easy, highly informed hiring decision. That's what we bring.
Yeah, I love it. I peeked at it a little bit, and truth be known, I haven't looked at it a lot. I'm going to, and I'm sure that your words have piqued people's curiosity. Well, listen, we got to go, Joe, but I can't let you out without asking you the fantasy question. I ask everybody, if you could bring back one leader from the past and spend a day with that person, who would you choose to bring back and why?
Oh, Lord, Mark, there's a lot of great leaders. Albert Einstein would be a first one that comes to mind. I love his thinking. I love the way he solved problems. I love solving problems. What he said was so powerful and it shaped my way of thinking. He said something so cool. You can never solve the problem at the same level that you're currently looking at it. You must first elevate the question before you can solve it. Then you can solve everything below that. Ask the right question to solve the problem. Most people pose hypotheses and then go looking for, supporting argument.
Yeah.
My process is ask the right question. Elevate it as high as you can go. I have a whiteboard and I write down a question. The question is, how can I improve resume scanning? Okay, not a great question. I could do whatever I want. Finally, a resume is even necessary. We helped H&R Block fix that process by going online and have no resumes needed. The applicants answered all the questions. We can actually look at the point of hire or at the point of application, what was the raw individual? We could do multiple regression statistical analyses to identify patterns in the way the good hires did that. That was the first year. It was actually published in the Kansas City Star back in 2002. We saved H&R Block 30% the first year and no resumes.
Wow. Does this tool, that's impressive, obviously. Does the tool span all industries?
Every industry. People are creatures of habit. Decision-making is decision-making. You just have to, by click the edit button, you can make it contextual to whatever industry you're in.
Yeah, I love it. Well, listen, it's been a fascinating conversation, Joe. I love it. And I appreciate your time and sharing your insights with us. I believe that people are going to want to find out more about you. How do they reach you, contact you, find out about you, your website? Tell us.
AccuHire.com, AccuHire.com, or call me. I love talking to people. 913-219-7700. Very simple. Or send me an email if you just want to start at, hey, Joe, I heard the podcast. Love to talk to you. Let me know what time works best. It's Joe@AccuHire.com. Too easy. JOE, AccuHire.com. So, Mike, there it is. Very easy. I love working with people, love solving problems. That's what gets me excited every day. I love what I do.
Well, it's apparent, obviously, and it's obvious that you have a wealth of experience and knowledge. So, can't thank you enough, Joe. It's been a fascinating conversation. Selfishly, I already plant that seed. Please come back and let's do it again on a slightly different tangent. I'd love to talk more with you, and I know the audience would like to hear more from you.
Mike, thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor to be here. I love your work. Please keep it up, and I hope to meet you one of these days.
Well, you got that. Thank you so much.
We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Please subscribe, rate, review, and recommend to your friends. Please visit our website at fidelisleadership.com and sign up for our leadership newsletter. Until next time, remember the words of the ancient Greek philosopher Pericles.
What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but is woven in the lives of others.